In today's video, we're going to take a look at 3 times alien skulls were discovered. As mentioned in previous videos, there have been many discoveries of alien artifacts by archaeologists. These aren't common finds, and uncovering an actual alien skull is even rarer. And yet, quite a few of them have popped up over the years. These skulls were found all across the world, from Peru to China. They all share a common trait: an elongated head. If you're curious to find out more, let's get started. First, we have the Paracas skulls, discovered in 2012 in the Paracas region of Peru. South America is no stranger to the discovery of elongated skulls. Since 1927, hundreds of these skulls have been uncovered there. Many of them are in surprisingly intact condition. But what makes the Paracas skulls unique is that there are no cranial sutures. In layman's terms, the skull isn't a single large piece of bone. It's composed of multiple parts, including 2 cranial bones at the top. As humans grow, those bones fuse. This leaves a jagged line running across the skull. But these Paracas skulls don't have that line. Why? Maybe they didn't belong to humans. The skulls also have a host of other unusual features. Expert Brian Forster states that the brain capacity of these skulls is larger than the human average. While it could be a result of ritual deformation, analysis has determined that this isn't the case. These beings with larger brains were apparently born that way. They also had unusually shaped eye sockets. At the top of the skulls, there are also 2 tiny holes where the cranial suture should be. But that's not all. After a series of DNA tests on one of the skulls, experts found that it's not even Peruvian in origin. Instead, the skull is Scottish. European colonization of the Americas wouldn't occur for another 1,500 years from the date of the skull's origin. So how did a Scottish man get to Peru and die there? There have been multiple theories put forth online about these skulls. Some people say the same aliens visited various cultures across the world. These aliens helped them build their civilizations. We covered this topic in some of our previous videos. Check out the links at the end. These aliens may have sent one of their own, or a hybrid, to Peru to aid the natives. Anthropology professor Melissa Murphy disputes these claims though. She states that pre-Hispanic peoples in Peru and elsewhere engaged in head elongation for thousands of years. It was supposedly a form of cultural modification of the body. This was done to mark different things like one's identity, a rite of passage, or an occupation. The DNA samples acquired by Forster were also stored in less than ideal conditions. This may have caused degradation and contamination, creating weird DNA readings. Apart from the Americas, unusual elongated skulls have also been found in Europe. Southern Germany in particular has yielded a treasure trove of them. These skulls were first found in Bavaria around the late 1960s. Dating back to 500 AD, the skulls are all from women in bridal attire. They show an elongation similar to those found around the world, like the previous example in Peru. But the thing is, Europe never had a prevalent culture of head elongation. Krishna Virama suggests that barbarian tribes may have kidnapped exotic women from elsewhere. They would have been taken as brides, but that still raises the question: where did they find these women? Speculation is that these were Hun women. The Huns were a nomadic 4th to 6th century culture that lived in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Culturally, they had more in common with Asia, which did have some instances of ritual head elongation. Another theory claims these long-headed brides were Bulgarians and Romanians. These brides were married off for political alliances. The head deformation would have been carried out from a very young age as a form of status marker. Either way, there's no clear consensus on whom the Bavarian skulls belonged to, or if they were even human to begin with. Conspiracy theorists believe that aliens intermarried with the locals, producing these hybrid brides who later spread out across Europe. Some of them may have been full-blooded aliens too. Lastly, the Hotomuga archaeological site in China also has some interesting findings. From 2011 to 2015, archaeologists unveiled 14 skeletons, 11 of which had elongated skulls. These skeletons were of mixed gender, ranging in age from 3 years old to as old as 40. The Hotomuga skeletons may be the oldest skeletons showing evidence of head elongation. One skeleton dated back to at least 12,000 years ago, while most of the others were roughly from 6,000 to 5,000 years ago. Aside from that, these skeletons also have flattened bones at the front and back of the head. Most specimens from other cultures only possess elongated skulls, without other body modifications. Given their age, these could be the ancestors of the other strangely shaped skeletons. A common theory is that people with elongated skulls first emerged in East Asia. From there, they spread elsewhere. Perhaps the flattened bones were an early genetic feature that later disappeared due to mixing and intermarriage. Professor Wang of Texas A&M University is skeptical though. He claims it is too early to tell whether these people originated in East Asia and spread elsewhere, or originated independently in different places. Regardless of the migratory habits of these strange people, one thing is clear. The fact that skulls found there span a period of 7,000 years is mind-blowing. Just think about it. No other archaeological site has shown evidence of the long-headed people living in one place uninterrupted for this long. For thousands of years, there were seemingly alien beings living among us. There is still much research and archaeology to be done in Hotomuga. Who knows what we'll uncover as that happens? It's safe to say that more and more unusual human remains will be discovered as time goes on. As we uncover more about these strange people with elongated heads, we come closer and closer to the truth. Have aliens been amongst us all along? It seems likely. We'll be exploring the secrets of the Moai, a series of massive statues found on Easter Island in Polynesia. Since their discovery in the 1800s, there has been much debate about their origins. Some even claim they were built by aliens. If you're interested to find out more, let's dive right into the video. First up, what exactly are the Moai? Statues, yes, but what sort of statues? The Moai are huge human heads made of stone. There are nearly 900 of these figures on Easter Island. They're scattered on the flanks of the island's extinct volcanoes. The figures average 13 feet in height and weigh 14 tons. Here's a curious fact about the Moai. Quite a lot of people think they're just stone heads, but that's not true. Most Moai have whole bodies hidden beneath the ground. Another interesting fact about Easter Island is that it's in the middle of nowhere. The nearest country, Chile, is 3,500 kilometers away. How did the inhabitants build and transport so many of these massive statues with limited technology? We'll touch on that in a bit. Speaking of transportation, the people of Easter Island were either incredibly strong or incredibly intelligent. You can't lift a 14-ton stone block on your own, especially with pre-modern technology. In 2012, the archaeologist Carl Lipo proposed a theory. Together with 18 other volunteers, he demonstrated a system of ropes tied around the top of a Moai statue. This allowed the workers to rock it back and forth across the island, kind of like making the statue walk. Of course, this still takes a lot of effort for one statue, and there are over 900 of them. Maybe the settlers didn't do it all by themselves. Some people also believe these statues were built elsewhere. They would then be transported to the island via advanced alien technology. The construction of the massive pyramids in Egypt raises similar questions. You can check out our previous video on that topic. We'll drop the link at the end of this one. It isn't just the geographical origin of the Moai that's mysterious. Many experts are still stumped by their purpose. A common theory is that the Moai were sculpted for religious or ritual reasons. Researchers believe that each statue represents a deceased head of a family or clan. The inhabitants of Easter Island once numbered in the thousands after all. Conspiracy theorists believe these Moai are statues built to honor alien visitors. As mentioned, Easter Island is pretty remote. Surviving out there isn't easy. The settlers may have received help from more advanced beings. In return, they built the Moai as a tribute to their saviors. Or maybe the aliens built the Moai as a reminder of assistance rendered. The statues appear to be inhuman, with some having very large eyes. Was that what the aliens looked like? Nobody knows for sure. Another point of debate is about the Moai stoneworking techniques. Many of them appear to be wearing large stone blocks that function as hats. These may appear to be ordinary blocks at first glance, but further inspection reveals something interesting. On the hats are carved, strange petroglyphs. What do they mean? Scholars are still unsure, but it's an eerie coincidence that some symbols resemble flying craft. It's also fascinating how the Moai are sunk so deep in the ground. Even setting aside the transportation that we discussed earlier, digging such massive pits is no mean feat for Stone Age civilizations. Nearby, there's also another strange stone construct that may point to the work of aliens. It's called the Vinipu platform, seemingly used for rituals. The platform towers over humans and is constructed from perfectly interlocking blocks. It's interesting to note that a similar construction method was employed in ancient Peruvian fortresses. Conspiracy theorists believe that aliens have assisted various cultures around the world. This fact seems to back their theory up. As for the settlers, the fate of the island natives remains a mystery to this day. The island was definitely inhabited at one point. It wasn't a temporary building site or stopover. Evidence for this can be found in the remains of pottery and utensils left behind. But the inhabitants themselves seem to have disappeared altogether at one point. Were they uplifted by their alien overlords? Some speculate they may have all died out due to infighting. The presence of weapons scattered about haphazardly seems to indicate this. But what caused such severe conflict to destroy this island civilization? Author Jared Diamond believes that this infighting was caused by the natives themselves. He claims they ruined their environment via overexploitation. In their need for farmland, firewood, and devices to move the Moai statues, they stripped the forest bare. Once the forest disappeared, so did the wood for boats, along with most edible birds. The fish died, the soil eroded, and crops wasted away. Faced with the lack of resources, this society fell to infighting. To quote Diamond, it was the clearest example of a society that destroyed itself, overexploiting its resources. On the other hand, some researchers believe that rats were to blame. They say the original settlers had rats aboard their ships. These Polynesian rats reproduced easily with no natural predators on the island. Excavations show the inhabitants made rats a steady part of their diet, and yet, it wasn't enough to stem the tide. In time, the rats overran and destroyed the environment. Or perhaps the alien overlords grew bored of their project and decided to pull out. Regardless of the cause, life seems to have become intolerable for the surviving settlers. With greatly reduced numbers, continuing life there was impossible. Whoever was left likely departed, never to return. Perhaps they found new lands or were taken up by the aliens to spare their lives. Did aliens build the Moai statues? Were they responsible for the disappearance of the islanders? The truth is still out there waiting to be discovered. For now, archaeological research continues on the secrets of Easter Island. Make sure to comment below on what your thoughts are, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to tune in next week.